Let me say, first of all, that it's always a pleasure to be back home. I find it difficult to start my remarks without acknowledging that. And of course, I always feel welcome, and it's a particular privilege when the CDF is doing new business with the government and people of St. Lucia. I might still be. The CARICOM Development Fund is pleased to sign today with the Ministry of Finance and the Water and Sewage Company, WASCO, 3 financing agreements totaling approximately US $5.7 million in support of 2 projects, as we've been told. Firstly, the upgrade of the Thebes water treatment plant for US approximately $4.9 million, of which 670,000 US dollars is in the form of grant funding, and 4.23 million US is a concessionary loan. And secondly, supplementary loan funding for the Pasios water treatment system of US $780,000. This supplementary funding is to address cost escalations that have become evident during the implementation of the project, since the signing of the initial loan agreement for that project in December 2023. The CDF initially provided loan financing of US $1.2 million for the rehabilitation of the Pasios water supply system, so the total concessional loan financing for this project now increases to almost $2 million US dollars. So all told, together with the financing for the Thebes water treatment plant, which is a newly approved project, this brings the total of CDF's financing for water infrastructure in St. Lucia to almost US $7 million. The Pasios water system services 10 communities. When completed, this improved water system is expected to satisfy an increase in daily consumption demand from 60 gallons to 80 gallons per person. In the case of the Thebes water treatment plant, this facility has long been a critical part of St. Lucia's water infrastructure, contributing to the basic human needs, health, and well-being of tens of thousands of citizens, primarily in the north of the island. However, with aging systems and increasing demand, the plant is now in urgent need of modernization. Upgrading this facility is not just a matter of technical improvement. It is a moral imperative to ensure that every St. Lucian has access to safe and reliable supply of drinking water. Water is essential for life and is inextricably linked to development in all its facets. It supports traditional livelihoods, social, economic, and industrial activities. However, we have seen in recent times how unsustainable development pressures and climate change have threatened the availability and quality of freshwater resources in small island developing states like St. Lucia. Indeed, climate change could negatively impact all development sectors, directly and indirectly, with serious implications for the island's population and economy. The CARICOM Development Fund has supported initiatives that promote equitable growth, cohesion, and resilience building across the Caribbean region since the fund's inception in 2008. By investing in the Pasios and Thebes water systems, the CDF is directly contributing to climate adaptation, promoting public health, and supporting social and economic sustenance and stability. Improved water infrastructure will reduce service disruptions, enhance disaster preparedness efforts, and support agriculture and tourism, 2 major pillars of St. Lucia's economy. This investment aligns closely with the CDF's strategic goals and regional mandate to foster inclusive development and reduce disparities among and within our member states. The CDF is therefore pleased to be able to respond to the urgent need to invest in these water infrastructure upgrades, which are so critical to advancing balanced and sustainable growth and development in St. Lucia and the wider region. And we thank the government of St. Lucia and WASCO for the opportunity to partner in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Today marks a significant milestone for WASCO as we enter into yet another phase of two critical projects essential for improving the water supply to the northern and southeastern regions of St. Lucia. We are aware, of course, of the negative impacts that the inconsistent supply to the north of the island has had both on the residents and the business community. This is due in part to frequent backwashing of our aged filters at the Thebes water treatment plant. This plant, originally constructed in 1993 and was expanded in 2007 to a total capacity of 10.8 million gallons per day, currently faces significant operational challenges due to aging infrastructure. 6 of the 10 filters are malfunctioning due to corroded components and outdated materials, forcing reliance on an inefficient water-only backwashing and resulting in increased water loss and reduced treatment capacity. The system's declining performance is compounded, of course, by climate change, as Mr. Suma spoke of earlier, with extreme rainfall producing more turbid water and droughts limiting our raw water availability. As a result, the Thebes treatment plant is functioning at roughly 40% efficiency, and of course, it cannot meet the growing demand in the rapidly developing service areas, making restoration to full capacity critical. This means that maintenance and treatment have become expensive, and we can ill afford to operate at this level indefinitely. WASCO's capacity to address and to remedy these challenges within our existing infrastructure has been hindered by the lack of financial resources necessary to fund these upgrades. However, through the awarding of US $4.233 million loan from the CARICOM Development Fund, backed by the government of St. Lucia through the Ministry of Finance, WASCO can now get down to the business of rehabilitating the Thebes treatment plant. In addition to this loan, the technical assistance grant of $670,000 US has been allocated for the provision of a safe, reliable, and climate-resilient supply of potable water to residents served by the Thebes water treatment plant. The use of this grant is expected to result in the installation of energy-efficient and renewable energy equipment at the plant, the provision of direct support for vulnerable communities through training and installation of rainwater harvesting systems, and enhanced water security for over 48,000 customers, comprising of residents, hotels, and other businesses. The project is expected, of course, to be completed within an 18-month period. While this may result in increased volumes, we need to make it clear, people, that there are 2 other projects which we are currently, well, we have, through the Minister of Finance, we have been able to secure loan funding for the 5-kilometer pipeline upgrade, which is the Millet to Vanna upgrade. And we are currently in talks with a number of institutions for us to install 2 kilometers of pipeline to the north of the island, which will be from the Bonte Gap to the Grosile Gap. Another CDF project which we are more or less launching, or relaunching, I should say, today, is the Passias Water Supply Redevelopment Project. And I know both members of Micoud, MP for Micoud North and Micoud South, would be very happy to have that project, which is valued at $1.9 million US. This is a critical upgrade, and it will significantly enhance the water availability for the communities in Monrepo and environs, with the installation of a modern water treatment and distribution system which will be designed specifically to meet the increasing demands of the persons of that area. Community engagement, of course, has been a key component of this process, and WASCO works closely with all of the stakeholders to ensure that this vital initiative is tailored to the specific needs of the Micoud North region. Subsequent to recent contract signing, excavation works have started as a precursor to the installation of a climate-resilient package treatment plant. I think we deserve a round of applause for that. Weather permitting, of course, these works will take up to 8 months to complete, by which time the residents will look forward to a more consistent water supply. 8 months, yeah, that's what I'm giving you. Yeah. WASCO, of course, is implementing these targeted upgrades to ensure the improvement of its treatment capacity and consistency of supply. I don't think so. So 8 months. But at least they would have seen that the works have begun. And anybody from the media, you all are welcome to go down to, to have a view and to ensure that, WASCO is on target. And we are going to be on target with this project. We've made a promise and we intend on keeping it. WASCO, in implementing these targeted upgrades to ensure the improvement of its treatment capacity and consistency of supply, these initiatives focus on strengthening operational efficiency and align with WASCO's broader mission to fortify water infrastructure, enhance climate resilience, and promote long-term sustainability for communities throughout St. Lucia. We, of course, at this time want to express our gratitude to the CDF and, of course, to the government of St. Lucia for their backing on these projects. It would be remiss of me not to thank Mr. Imran Williams, who has really been working very hard with WASCO to ensure that those projects are going to come to fruition. We also want to thank our customers for your patience and your understanding during this essential transition. We can assure you that things will improve as our upgrades progress. I thank you.
This morning I stand here not only as a parliamentary representative for Micoud North, but as someone who has personally endured the struggles brought about by water shortages in the community. And I can tell you firsthand that the current infrastructure, water infrastructure in past years has really outlived its usefulness. It's aged. And what we've seen over the years is development in areas like Wen, and we've not seen the like development happening with the water infrastructure to compensate for the infrastructural development that we see happening in the community. And it has really put a lot of strain and pressure on the current system in past years. In December 2023, I remember saying, well, even prior to that, as soon as we assumed office, I went to the Prime Minister and I said to him, it really irks me as a parliamentary representative to see on numerous occasions we have to close our schools, our health centers become dysfunctional. Right now we provide care for individuals, and when we do not have a constant supply of water, those individuals charged with providing care, those caregivers, it puts them in a bit of a bind. And truth be told, the past year's water supply is one of the most affected water supplies in St. Lucia. I think the current system serves in excess of about 1,800 households, not individuals, households. So it's somewhere within the region about 5,000 to 6,000 people are being served by this water supply. And over the years, we've seen patches being placed on source. In that, we saw more water tanks being brought in. However, the truth is, we did not have a system that allowed us to be able to fill these water tanks that are being brought in. We did not have a distribution line or distribution system that allowed for individuals to be able to get a constant water supply. And as much as we saw certain things being done, what we saw was not what was necessary. And I thank the Prime Minister for his steadfast leadership and for ensuring that we gave the people of Passias, Monrepo, Margaret Tooth, Escap, and Wayne La Pointe, and all, I think, 10 sub-communities that this system serves right now, it services right now, for giving them what they actually deserve. And what some people may see as pipes being laid, trenches being dug, and tanks being erected, and it may seem simple, for us as a community, I can tell you, it's really life-changing. It really restores dignity. And we can all agree here that water is not a luxury, water is necessary, and I don't think that it is fair that anybody should go days and instances we in the community go weeks without water. And it is not a problem that came about in July of 2021. It's a problem that existed way before I assumed office, way before. And I thank the Prime Minister again for not just listening and considering, but taking firm action and ensuring, with the help of the CDF, that today we are at this juncture where we can give the people of Passios and environs a reliable water supply, a reliable distribution line, where no longer will we have to wait on gravity. We have a situation whereby when we have heavy rains and the water becomes turbid and we have blockages with the system, individuals must manually go to an area that takes, when you park, it takes about 3.5 hours to 4 hours, and Zilta can attest to that, to get to the area where they have to go and remove leaves and whatever to allow the water back. And we depend on gravity currently. The new system is one that's modernized, is one that takes into consideration the technology. So hopefully we're going to have less downtime when we have problems or disruptions with the water supply, and I'm grateful for that. It speaks about, I mean, you can imagine now the Passios Combined School, the Monipok SDA School, all the preschools that we're about to open in a couple of weeks will now be able to benefit from this water supply. The health center within the area and all other persons who utilize that system will be able to benefit. So with that said, I want to thank the Prime Minister immensely for considering and acting. And I must say that when I went to the Prime Minister, this is the fastest I've gotten a response. It was, I went and immediately after, I think it took way longer from the time he said yes, and we went to sign to where we are today. So he said yes right away. However, we understand the administrative hurdles that we face sometimes when we deal with institutions. Some things are beyond our control. And I think that was one of the concerns I expressed the day that we had the sword turning ceremony, December 2023. When are we actually going to start the physical works? I'm proud to say that I was in St. Mary last week. I saw the excavator clearing, I saw the clearing happening, I saw physical work happening on the ground, and I was very excited when I saw what was happening on the ground. And now that Zilta said 8 months, I heard Prime Minister whisper whether we can shorten the time. I don't know why he whispered that. I'm hoping that we can open that water supply very soon, because it has serious implications for me and for the people of Micoud North. So I'm hoping that very soon we will be in a position to actually go and cut the ribbons to actually open the system. So again, Prime Minister, I thank you, and Mr. Rodinal Suma and your team from CDF, I thank you immensely for not just considering but acting on this. And to the people of Passios, I say thank you for your patience. As I explained earlier, it's going to take some time. I want to ask you to have a certain level of patience with the contractors. You've waited for decades, but what you've waited for decades is finally going to become a reality, and it's going to be one that is worth the wait. So with that, I thank you.
Ahead of yesterday's invitation, within minutes of receiving the invitation for this afternoon's or this morning's event, was a letter from the residents of Cap Estate, lamenting the current situation of water supply, pipe-borne water, in the Cap Estate region, and the difficulties and challenges that they have faced for decades, and the deteriorating water supply in the north of the island. And they were very specific of Cap Estate. But that situation is not only in Cap Estate. It is Mondidor, it's Hillcrest Gardens, it's Agard, it's Cariley, it's York Hill, it's in Marshall, it is in Entrepot, It is the entire north of the island where 60% of our population resides. And over the years, what we have seen is no improvement to the supply of water to our people, who we are committed to in changing their lives. As we speak, our water infrastructure is deteriorating rapidly. WASCO records some 51 to 52% of non-revenue water, which is unacceptable. Our raw water line from the John Compton Dam through to the Cicero plant is in need of reconstruction. I'm happy that the Prime Minister has demonstrated full commitment to that cause, and today we are negotiating with the Caribbean Development Bank to replace the raw water line to improve the capacity from the John Compton Dam into Cicero. But getting that water into Cicero doesn't help the situation, because it is retarded by what Mrs. Zilter George Leslie said. The filtration system has deteriorated by 60%. The ability to transmit that water, or to get that water out of Cicero's treatment plant into other areas, has become more and more difficult as we speak. I welcome this initiative. The initiative of rehabilitating the Thebes treatment plant, and to be able to improve capacity, particularly to the north of the country. But as we do those things, there must be a coordinated approach in ensuring that all of the elements are synchronized and streamlined to ensure that we do it in a manner that ensures tremendous benefit to those at the end of the water line. I must commend the Director of Finance for his interest, his dedication, and his commitment and drive to attend to some of those initiatives to help improve the water supply in the north of the island particularly. This, of course, is being done while we focus on other sections of the island, and to ensure that the entire island can receive the quality service that they have been demanding. For our part, our focus has to be on, one, achieving the raw water line system to improve that supply to Cicero, to improve Cicero as we have now got firm commitment to increase capacity through the north of the island, and of course improving the distribution network from Cicero throughout the north of the island to give a more guaranteed supply of service to the people. What is happening in the north? It's not only households that have been improved and more homes are being built, but hotel rooms are being constructed. One of the biggest hotels to be built in St. Lucia is now under construction, and the demand for more quality potable water is a key element. We need to ensure that we put that necessary infrastructure in place to satisfy the social and economic needs of our country. In my constituency, I've spoken to the Basic Needs Trust Fund to implement or to establish what I call a water tank farm. And when I spoke to WASCO and indicated to WASCO that I need 1 million gallons reserve to facilitate Castries North, Castries East, and some of the other communities in the north, they thought it was a far-fetched initiative. I believe that by putting in such infrastructure, if we can put in 1 million gallons of storage, and to begin with, the Basic Needs Trust Fund through the SSDF has already moved forward and have identified that project as a priority to install what I believe is the first tank of 325,000 gallons, to be followed later on as we speak with a few other tanks, 4 more tanks, to build that capacity beyond the 1 million gallons that I'm talking about. It seemed like a dream, it seemed far-fetched. I'm told we cannot get the water to the hills, but we can do anything. We can get to the moon, we can get to the hills. So, at this time, we are now negotiating on the acquisition of lands in the area at the highest elevation and in negotiation with the landowners to acquire, in the first instance, 10 acres of land to put in that infrastructure and other necessities for the various communities in the north. I am hoping that once that is done, the strategic plan of WASCO will be enhanced, not just to continue to pump water through the existing infrastructure, but to develop the infrastructure at the community level. And this has to be a focus in attempting to get persons to have their water meters on the boundaries rather than 300 yards away. So this initiative, I'm sure, is the beginning of much to come. The fact that we understand the critical nature of what the water infrastructure in St. Lucia, which in my own estimation is calling for at least $300 million investment in improving St. Lucia's water infrastructure. We need to ensure that a strategic plan is implemented and enhanced, rather, but at the same time, to engage the private sector, to get the private sector involved in the water sector, so as to bring about an efficient, a more efficient, a more reliable, a more agile establishment that can bring satisfaction to those persons who write, whether from Cap Estate or Boapatat or Bishop's Gap. That is our dream, that is our commitment, and I believe that will be our fulfillment. So once again, let me thank the Prime Minister for his consciousness, his understanding of the plight of the people of St. Lucia, at every given moment to respond and to give positive action and to ensure that the negotiations move ahead with the support of his team from Economic Development and the team from the Department of Finance, who are very active in all of this. I want to appeal to WASCO, which falls under the Department of Infrastructure, to see their role as one of not merely a supplier, but a developer, a producer, a distributor, and one which must reflect the energy, the enthusiasm, and the vision of the government of St. Lucia. I want to thank the CDF for having responded, although I believe there might be another vote of thanks, but I want to thank the CDF for the quick response in dealing with both the situation at the Thibels treatment plant and in Mico, which is certainly going to bring much relief to our people here in St. Lucia. Once again, I thank you.
The two institutions here this afternoon mean quite a lot to me. The CDF, because at the time, Kenny Anthony was a Prime Minister, and he sent me to the inaugural meeting of the CDF in Jamaica. It happened in Jamaica. That's where it started. And I was there representing St. Lucia, together with Prime Minister Owen Arthur and a few other Prime Ministers. And I made the error of trying to make a contribution. And Owen Arthur said to me, when ministers of tourism are places, they keep quiet. What he was saying to me is, don't open my mouth when prime ministers are speaking. So I duly noted, I sat, and when I left the room, Owen Arthur came to me and he said to me, man, you must understand, you ain't get there yet. Look at it, Owen, no. I really want to pay tribute to Owen, because Owen helped me to be who I am today, that one day I would be a prime minister. And I really hope that governments understand, regional governments, why the CDF was created, and they continue to make their contributions to the CDF. It's a very important institution, very important body within the whole CARICOM infrastructure. And I say that not because Roddy and my friend Wayne as staff, as members of staff, but because the CDF is extremely important for disadvantaged countries and industries. We really have to understand that you need these organizations, and I make a plea to our governments to make their contributions to the CDF so the CDF can continue to do what it has to do. Also, WASCO. And when you hear the discussion in St. Lucia today, you'd believe that WASCO's problems began on the 26th of July, 2021. St. Lucia always had an abundance of water. Things are flowing. There was water in every pipe. There was water everywhere. I mean, and suddenly, on the 26th of July, there's no more water. All of a sudden, so many things in St. Lucia began on the 26th of July. So many things began on the 26th of July, 2021. Crime began, gangs began, 26th of July. But I really want to tell you that WASCO has been under pressure for a long, long time. And I really want to make an apology for WASCO, and also make an apology for the staff of WASCO, who I know work very hard and make tremendous sacrifice to bring water to the people of St. Lucia. I really want to thank them, because I understand, and I hear what people say about them when they pass. And I hear when they go to fix a pipe, what people say about them. And I really want to see that WASCO, under the circumstances, is trying its best. WASCO, what we need right in St. Lucia, we have to look at WASCO as an entity that delivers a public good, but has to survive. And we have to be very honest about it and see where WASCO is going. So there was an attempt before to make WASCO become a corporate entity. That was thrown out of the window for reasons that you know best. But we have to look at WASCO and look at the reality, and as Zilta says, from 1993. 1990 was long before 2021. Look at the reality that exists and the investment that we need to put in WASCO so that WASCO can serve the needs of the people of St. Lucia. And when we speak about WASCO, we never remember how this country's infrastructure is growing. Never before, and I say that without any fear or favor, never before in the history of St. Lucia have so many hotels been built at the same time. Never. Never. Right now, construction of 500 rooms at the Alia Resorts, 500 new rooms. That is just the start. Lower down the road, at Rodney Bay, at least 2 and possibly 4 hotels are going to be built. We've seen the expansion of the hotel industry. We've seen the expansion of housing. In St. Lucia today, on some weekends, you cannot buy a concrete block. You can't find it even though you want it. There's shortage of cement. We have an issue coming for stones, etc. There's a big problem in St. Lucia to get aggregate for the construction of houses. We never seem to remember that. We never seem to say that, but always say there is no water. And you don't know why there is no water? Because of Pierre. But I really want the public of St. Lucia, around the noise, around the talk shows and the noise, to look at the reality and say to me, if there's a plant that has been there for ages, that has not done any meaningful rehabilitation, if there was a dam that ought to be desilted and has not been desilted after we've spent all the money, and you can't blame WASCO staff for that. If that circumstance exists, why we have issues with water? And you know, in the season that's coming up, we really need to get real with the facts as they exist. There is too much fluff and bluff going on in this country without any real understanding or truthfulness about the real situation. WASCO, and soon from now, other utility companies will have the same issue. This country's infrastructure is growing at a rate, and the production and delivery of water, etc., is not growing at that rate because the investment that has to be done there is not being done. I remember the senior minister making a point about the cost of water, and he's talking about the price of a bear, and he'd broken the Virgin's arm. That was a major project. That was a major talk show. And look at King talking about bear. Deliberate. Deliberate. What he was saying, and now he can speak to himself much better than me. He doesn't stutter. What he was saying for himself is that the cost of water, he was comparing it to the price of a bear. Very simple. And that was a major catastrophe, major problem. King was this and that, you know. But these are the things that we make issue with deliberately for selfish reasons, deliberately. But this government, we invest, apart from what you're doing today, we invest $1.2 million in WASCO every month, and that has started from, I think, January this year. And this $1.2 million, I can inform you, comes from the CIP program. Goes into WASCO every month. But we have to play our part. We have to begin to think about water harvesting. Gallons of water come from the sky in this region every year. We have to begin to deal with water harvesting. We have to. I think the government has removed the VAT on water tanks, etc. We have to help ourselves. There are some countries in the world where you cannot build a house without a water tank. You can't. But in St. Lucia, we've taken the convenient position to blame everything that happens on the government. Very convenient. Very, very convenient. The government is not perfect. There has been no government that has been perfect. St. Lucia, nowhere in the world is a perfect country. If the world was perfect, there would have been no need for me to have to go next door for somebody becoming a member of the King's bench, because we would have no need for courts. There's never a perfect country. We pretend now that we want to live in a perfect country. We pretend that. And in our pretense, we become hypocrites, and we malign people's characters because we want to pretend that St. Lucia was a perfect country. WASCO is not perfect. WASCO has never been perfect. Of course, WASCO needs to improve. But WASCO needs to be given the resources, and that is why the $7 million investment in WASCO today, some through loan and some through grant, is extremely important for what is going forward. We've been having discussions with the Caribbean Development Bank to ensure that we get a real investment in the water supply in terms of the pipelines into the north of the country. And that is going to cost millions of dollars. And you will hear something about St. Lucia's debt. As soon as we go there, you'll hear about debt, St. Lucia's debt. This government is borrowing. This government is wait and see. As soon as you get there, no one has any alternative. Two things you can do for WASCO. To increase the capital, you have to invest, but you have to repay the debt. You have to repay it. So the government is looking and the government has been speaking to the CDP, the Caribbean Development Bank, says CDP. The Caribbean Development Bank, to see if we can have that investment in the water supply. So once, and we are ready to take the bold steps to change this country. We're ready to take the bold steps. So we will be approaching the Parliament of St. Lucia for a major loan to improve Wasco infrastructure. Hopefully once so that we can improve the water situation in St. Lucia. So I really want to thank the people of Wasco. I want to thank the CDF. I want to thank the CDF for investing in St. Lucia. And also the idea that water is life, but water must benefit people. The people of this country need water, and the people of Pralle need water. The people of Pralle need water. Sometimes we forget the real people. We forget where they are. And when we laugh at these little initiatives because they affect people, and because we in our own private lives don't feel it, but he who feels it most knows it. And talking about feeling most know it, the people in my constituency in a place called Bagatelle, they are being metered. And the member from Microsoft made a point about pride. You will not believe how Microsoft, and this Microsoft in my mind. The member from Microsoft made a point about pride. You will not believe the pride in these people that we call them people, and we say they're crime-ridden. How happy they are to get their own meter, to pay for their water. You understand? So when we castigate communities, because you want to castigate the parliamentary rep, so you castigate communities, these people are real people. They have the same aspirations, they have the same hopes for themselves and for their children. And it's only a small minority that are creating problems. So I will continue to see that the business of Wasco is to produce water and the business of the police is to control crime. And my job is not to go and fix any pipe. My job is to make the resources available through the cabinet and for my colleagues and for institutions like the CDF to make Wasco function. Right. The same way, my job as Minister of National Security is to put no gun on my back and go in the streets. My job is to make the resources available to the police within the fiscal constraints of this government so the police can go out and do their work. Similar to my job for Wasco. So I want to thank the CDF. I want to thank the parliamentary rep for Mico North. And the parliamentary rep for Mico North is a persistent crier. As I came to sit there with him, he cried in my ears already. And you know, and the commitment of the members of the cabinet to the constituents is something that we must sit in a cabinet room and listen to. And when you have people who do not know us, when you have people who have their own selfish motives, say these things about us, it actually, I've learned in politics not to get hurt. So anybody who plans to hurt me, tell them change your mind. Physically, I don't know. When you see the passion with which these guys speak about their constituencies, when you hear the pleas and the cries of Jeremiah for the people of Pralle, every day our cabinet clerk lives in Pralle, and Jeremiah joins her in putting pressure on us for the Pralle situation. Roddy can tell you, I've been speaking to him about this Pralle water, because he feels it. He understands the pain of the people who live in that area when there is no water. The same way Stevenson King understands the pain of the people at Cap Estate when there is no water. We understand it. Help is on the way. I can assure you that help is on the way. It will not happen all in 1 year, but help is on the way. And we hope that when we return to open the parallel water, the passage water supply, and deal with what we have to do with the T-Bills plan, we can tell you about better news in the future. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
I think this one is the grant facility. And the T-Bills treatment